You're a businessman, so obviously something that you are passionate about as well is jobs, and something that was highlighted during the week on WMBD and WYZZ was youth and young adult unemployment. Talk a little bit about that project.
Yeah, so a couple of things on that. It's a statewide task force, and I did the same thing as the citizen legislating idea. I called Katie Kelly, who works for the Peoria Police Department, amazingly intelligent young woman, great presence, and I said, will you be my surrogate on this committee? I want you to be there with me whenever we're working on something. She drove the task force meeting we had here yesterday, and a couple of things came out of that. First, real clarity of the problems. We have employers, right now there's jobs in Peoria. The workforce is not prepared for those jobs. So first thing, we have to get clarity on what employers need and make sure we're preparing people. The barriers we're seeing with individuals being prepared for those jobs, soft skills, just basic social skills. A lot of times about not having IDs, which is something we can solve, and there's people in town doing that. And then last, transportation. So that's a few of the problems. Now let's move to what came out of this yesterday with regard to the solution side. First thing, everything rises and falls on leadership. And young people that need a direction, need a relationship with somebody, and the example came up multiple times yesterday, Hetty Elliott with her Moonlight Coalition and what she does for GEDs, personal relationships, and she's moving people through the system. So that's the first thing, it's about leaders. Second thing, it's about this legislation and how there's some things we can be tweaking, and I spoke with 4 people this morning as follow-ups from yesterday on is there legislation they want to see. There's some ideas that came out of that. But the third thing is something we're going to call collective impact model, where today people in the system might need A, B, and C, but they're only connected to A, and without B and C they won't be successful. How do we put together a database of the clients and then make sure that across different agencies we're all touching those individuals to help them get into the workforce? It was a fantastic task force yesterday, and I think it's going to help us in our community.
So I think I always kind of throw you for a loop.
You always do, every time. And it's your last segment, so you got to.
In our conversation. So I've just been thinking about, what you said a little bit earlier about bipartisanship and maybe everybody working in their self-interest, in an election year. And obviously we have a very contentious race at the top of the ticket between J.B. Pritzker and Governor Rauner. And the budget's passed. Lawmakers obviously have to return, you among them, in November after the election. So if everybody worked in their best interest to pass a budget.
Personal interest or best interest for their constituents?
Their personal best interest, okay.
Okay.
And we have a contentious election. If the result is, in November, that J.B. Pritzker wins, and everybody worked to pass a budget in their best political interest, and the bipartisanship that was reached was self-serving. How can lawmakers work together going forward come November and beyond?
Yeah, a very interesting dynamic, because bipartisanship will be a very different dynamic with J.B. Pritzker, because you're going to have a Democrat in the governor's house, you're going to have Democrat-controlled House, you're going to have a Democrat-controlled Senate, and we have a Democrat-controlled Supreme Court, which should not matter, but the reality is over the last few years it's mattered. Things will sail whichever direction that party wants it to go. The problem is, I've shown you my chart, and I've got it right here if you want to see it again, of what's happened with Speaker Madigan's leadership over the last, since 1982, and our bond rating has gone from AAA to BBB-. Our state will be in a state of ruin. I believe that. Now, bipartisanship won't be the issue, because they will be in complete control, and I would say the same thing if Republicans were in power across all branches. That's not healthy. So I think that's a real issue we're going to be facing.
So what's the solution?
I think, and I don't know how political you want me to be on this show. I try to.
It's a political show.
Yeah. I think we've got to have Governor Rauner in office. I think we have to have Governor Rauner in office. I was with some people the other day, and they were saying that we can't have him because of the impasse. 2 people caused an impasse. You can't name him for the impasse. He got into office and he said, Speaker Madigan, that tax increase sunset, I'm willing to give it back to you tomorrow, but I need these changes. And it was 42 of them. And then it went to 20. And then the day I was appointed, it was at 7. And by a year and a half ago in May, He was down to 3 things. He said, I will give you the tax increase, but we need these 3 things to change in our state for it to be healthy. He didn't get them because he was, there was an override on his veto. That's tragic. And as a result, we put a new tax into place, just like we did in 2011. And I'll finish with this point. 2011 to 15, we had $32 billion of new money. Our unfunded pensions went up $20 billion, to the worst, right? Our schools got less money, and our bond rate went down 5 times. And the governor said, that did not work. You got to have reform. And he basically put his political life on the line to say this reform must happen. And he got beat last May by an override on his veto. I think people are starting to understand that, and they understand the crisis in our state. And without Governor Rounder, we do not fix those problems.
All right. Well, State Senator Chuck Weaver, it has been a pleasure talking to you and having you on the program for the last 3 years.
I get the last word today.
Okay.
I cannot tell you how much I thank you for letting me do this and for working with you. The value you brought to our citizens by being here and serving like you have, and how you let us get the word out and let people get more educated. You've been fantastic to work with, and I wish you the best as you go forward. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.